I'm really big on sleep. That's like my obsession. It's the thing I'm the most particular about. So I would say sleep, movement, my nootropics, and then kind of playing around with timing, like I said, with my schedule. So batching content, figuring out when I can get into that zone, that creative zone right after I work out or I've done some sort of movement where I feel that I can be the most productive. But it's hard. It's a constant battle every day.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, the podcast for women who want to build incredible mental strength to level up their business and lifestyle. I'm Renee Warren, the founder of We Wild Women, author, speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, and your host. Together, we will make you unapologetic about shining your light, growing your business, and turning you into a wildly confident and successful leader. This is for you, the visionary, the go-getter, the entrepreneur, and for those that need a real kick in the butt to get going and to dream bigger. Each week, I bring in leading experts and entrepreneurs to help you take leaps in the right direction, because I know the best advice comes from someone who has successfully done it before. So, are you ready to level up? Welcome to Into the Wild. Hey, you wild women. My next guest is a college and corporate dropout. She started her blog in her dorm room and her podcast in her closet. Now voted a top Forbes podcast. The show has millions of downloads, all while building an 8-figure wellness brand from scratch called Soul. She's here to talk about the realities of life as a 30-something woman in today's world and how to make ADHD your superpower. In this episode, Angie and I talk about why we think that most successful entrepreneurs have inklings of ADD or ADHD and how to manage the energy she has throughout the day so that she can focus, be productive, and win her day. Please welcome the incredible Angie Lee.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here.
Thanks for meeting me. Like for the first time, we've known each other forever because by way of Clay, your man, who is like one of the most genius marketing people ever. And you guys are together. Perfect duo.
His brain is very smart. I'm humbled daily.
Isn't it crazy when you're just with these people that, like the other day I asked Dan about just a quick financial question. And I was like, I'm trying to figure out the best way to structure my business. And he goes, do this, and then walks away. And I'm like, how do you know to say the right answer? How do you know this? Screw you.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting being with someone who's so logical because I'm much more emotional. Like he lives up here and I live down here. But it's like an interesting balance because it's constantly the compliment that we need to each other. So yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, so some quick questions for you. Where are you from?
I'm from Chicago.
Yes.
Chicago. You might hear it in my accent. I still have that accent, so.
No way. Okay, I've been there a couple times in the summertime. It was great.
It's freezing. Don't go in the winter.
I know. What was one of the toughest moments you had to face as an entrepreneur?
It's very interesting that I don't process them as tough moments. I probably should more. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. And so even when things suck, like whether it was losing money with Soul or my brother and I had multiple businesses we started together before Soul that weren't quote unquote successful on paper, I often don't see them as failures because I seem to have a little bit of this like, I call it beautiful naivety in a sense, like this ultimate optimism of like, well, we'll just try again. Oh, we'll just do something different. And so I think that's been a gift in entrepreneurship. So I think I would say the hardest part in general, I don't think there's like one specific moment, like it all crashed and then made $1 million after that. I don't think it's like one of those rags to riches moments. I think that just in general, starting my brand at 19, I quit college. I was $100,000 in debt. So I had no idea what I was doing. And at the time, people didn't know you could make money being an influencer or a creator or an entrepreneur. So it wasn't like a popular thing. So I think dealing with that feedback from family, friends, loved ones, feeling really confused because I'm young, I'm in debt, I don't have a degree, I don't have anything to prove that I can go get a job, but I knew I was unemployable. So I'm kind of in this weird, like, what's going to happen to my life? I think that, and then also I share a lot of my life on the internet. I've shared it now for 13 years. And so part of being a creator that is really difficult is just people see your life and that's awesome and great 99.9% of the time. And then there's a small sliver where it just sucks because there's not always the best, nicest humans on the internet. So you're always going to deal with the like, let me share everything and be vulnerable. And then you're going to get a turd comment. So it's kind of like that's been the most difficult part, is building the confidence in knowing that I don't need to be a people pleaser. And I feel like I just now feel really good in that this year. Like I share what I share because I love it. And if someone doesn't, keep scrolling on to the next person. But that took me 32 years. I mean, 10 of it was like creating, but it took me a while to get to that point where I'm confident enough to deal with that, because that would be the hardest part of my job, I would say.
Okay, so if you're not already following her, it's Angie Lee Show, and your stuff is hilarious. And it's so funny because you have a couple pinned reels. Because I'm getting to know you and I've been following you for a while, is I immediately go to, oh my gosh, this is going to trigger some people so much. But you speak the truth and you're so hilarious. Oh my gosh. You know, it's funny. I'm looking at you on these videos. You know, my mom used to say to me that I could never be in television because I wouldn't fit on the TV screen. Because I'm 6 feet tall.
So funny. Wait, that's so crazy to think about, because you're like, how would you, you're so tall.
Yeah, but you fit.
Oh my God.
You fit on the TV screen. No, it's so true. Those little turds that come up every now and then, and it's like that less than 1%. And you might have 50,000 people saying how brilliant you were in the day. And then you get this one little person and it's just like, wah, wah. Thank you.
Yeah, it really tests your ability to build true confidence and stepping more into comedy. That's my big vision, is to be a comedian full time. And so it's like kind of a weird job in that, like, to think that you can get into that job, which requires a level of comedy is truth plus pain. So in those videos, there is truth. That's why it's funny. But of course, in that could trigger someone. So it's almost like this dance that you're always dancing as a comedian. And you have to realize that that's the whole point. That is the art of it. And if someone doesn't appreciate it, that's fine. They can go find another art form that they enjoy. You have to be more committed to your craft and the creativity and the art. So for me, I'm so obsessed with making that piece of content and writing the script and editing it that outweighs one person thinking it's not funny. Like it doesn't matter anymore. But honestly, I wasn't like that until recently. I would get so nervous. Like, what if everyone doesn't like this? And it's like friggin' Chris Rock wonders that. And he's like one of the greatest comedians, or Dave Chappelle. You know, they wonder that too before they go on stage, but well, maybe not anymore because they're so big. But it's good that you still care, but like you can't care at a certain point. So that's what I'm working on.
That's so true. I mean, maybe there's those micro moments of just not caring as you're growing and moving up the ladder. Yeah. Right. So but now it's kind of like you got to ignore those bad comments because it's not going to serve you. And it's definitely not going to help the people that need you. Because if that person influences you to not shine as bright, then you're not serving the people that you should have been serving to begin with.
Absolutely.
So good on you.
Yeah.
Good on you. Okay, so tell us, what is one of your favorite quotes?
I was going to say, what are you waiting for? And that's like a very typical, like, ready as a lie-esque joke, or a quote, not joke, a quote. But there's one I really like from Jim Carrey. I just pulled it up. It's really good. And I think that it's one everyone needs. Okay. He says, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. I love this quote because I think so many of us are chasing for that, whatever that looks like. If I have this, I'll be happy. Or for a lot of people, it is if I'm famous, if I'm known enough, if I have enough relevance, if I receive enough praise from others, this external validation, if I just get filled up with it enough as an entrepreneur or creator, then I'll be happy. And you realize that that's just not how it works. It actually becomes more lonely and more depressing the more that you're just so obsessed with that recognition in a sense. So I love that one of the most famous actors and comedians was really honest about that, who had a lot of money and fame and these things that everyone's trying to get. Yet he was honest that it wasn't necessarily what brought him pure fulfillment or happiness. And I'm always obsessed with studying fulfillment. Like, how are people actually happy? Not just, do they have money? Because there's a ton of really rich people who are super depressed. And so I think quotes like that are fascinating to study what really makes people happy. So I love that quote.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it was Ed Milet. Ed Milet was on a podcast, or maybe his podcast, but someone asked him, I think it was him, because he coaches millionaires, billionaires, right? The people that are seemingly the happiest people in the world. And they asked him, Ed, are your clients happy? And he goes, you know what? About 15% of them are. 75% of these millionaire billionaires aren't happy. But I thought, being rich and famous was the key to happiness, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, look at a lot of the child stars. They were given fame, beauty, money, popularity, all these things that we've been told once you get that, then you will be happy. And look at Britney Spears. I mean, look at a lot of these people. They just usually end up
Bieber.
really unhappy using medication and things and drugs to numb the pain. You hear a lot about suicides too in really wealthy people. So it's like, why aren't we talking about this more? It's very interesting. But I think if we can have more conversations around fulfillment, we can begin to ask ourselves, what is happiness for you outside of just money and fame?
We could talk about that, but I want to talk about something else. Yeah. Speaking of drugs, a good drug, you have a company called now Soul, but it used to be called Soul CBD. What inspired you to start that company?
Yeah, my brother Mike was a professional boxer, and being a professional athlete, his body was in a lot of pain. He was dealing with a lot of stress and anxiety. I was growing my business as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, and I was super stressed, and we were both using CBD to cope with it. We both loved it. It's the non-medicinal form of marijuana, and so you're getting all the medicinal benefits without getting high, without the hallucinogenic aspect, 0 THC. And so we loved it. He was using it for joint pain, inflammation. I use it for sleep. And we came together one day. I was living in LA at the time. And he said, do you want to make this a business? Like, what do you think? And I was like, sure, why not? I'm very like, we own it together. He's the practical, grounded one. He loves numbers and let's be safe with our money and what we're doing. And I'm like the dreamer. Let's just go for it. Let's see what happens. Let's throw things at the wall and see what happens. Throw poop at the wall and see what happens. And so we're polar opposites. And so he was like, well, maybe this, da, da, da. And I was like, no, let's do it. We put our own money into it, not knowing if we'd ever get more than my mom as a customer. And now, gosh, it's almost been 4.5, 5 years later. We've built a massive, massive business and we're going to sell in the next few years. And it's all because one day in my kitchen, we were like, I think people need this. Let's do this because of us falling in love with the ingredient ourselves. And it's such a beautiful plant. And so we're here to heal people with that plant. And now we've expanded to some products that won't have CBD as well, which is really exciting.
Very cool. And you're not available in Canada yet?
No, because, and listen, this is the biggest question we get. The number one DM I get is not an exciting one, okay? It is, do you ship to Canada? I'm like, oh my gosh, the darn border hates CBD, which is so silly. And so you can like buy it from your friend in America and then like she can hide it in like a box and ship it. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's 2023. Like there's like a liquor store at every corner and you can get drunk on this poison, but yet you can't eat a gummy with 10 milligrams of CBD, which is literally going to like not hurt you at all. It's crazy.
Well, it's so funny. I can so go weird. Into like the cannabis shop down the street here with my kids with the cop parked next to me because he's popping into 7-Eleven to grab a soda. And I can get whatever I want there at the cannabis shop.
Yeah, here's the fascinating thing. CBD has a 0 toxicity level. And what that means is you can walk down the street right now and go to CVS and you could take some Dayquil, NyQuil, you could take ibuprofen. If you ate an entire bottle of ibuprofen, you could potentially die. It's not safe in excess. You could eat our entire thing of gummies. They're very delicious. Many people want to. Yeah, you might have a stomach ache. Obviously, there's a little bit of natural sugar, but you're not going to die. There's literally 0 toxicity level. So it's almost like the safety of it is so safe that it's so silly that people can't order just a little box of it. So no, we can't ship to Canada, but we're working on it always. We're always trying to like figure out how to get over the border.
Well, you need to be friends with Trudeau. That's it. That's the gateway. So that you're now 5-ish plus years in business. That's amazing. And what were you doing before that? Were you coaching?
I was hosting female events, like empowerment events. First, it was fitness events. So I started as a fitness blogger, and then that transitioned into just general wellness and empowerment events. I was doing those in Chicago, and then in LA, I was doing those. And I owned an online school that essentially taught digital marketing to wellness professionals. So I was doing that at the time. So I was doing a lot with speaking, courses, podcasting, live events, and then phased out of that just to go full-time influencer after getting so burnt out from that and realizing that wasn't my thing. So it's been some interesting evolutions now.
I love it because I knew you, I think back then as like coach, events person. Yeah. Sometimes it feels like yesterday.
I know.
But let's like dive in now. The real reason why I wanted to have you on the show, other than the phenomenal things that you're working on right now, but you're such an open book about this. And I know that there's been a request specifically for somebody like you, and I knew you were the perfect person to talk about ADD, ADHD, and entrepreneurs. So tell us.
Welcome, my squirrel friends.
Welcome.
Listen,
oh my gosh.
Entrepreneurship is probably the number one job for the ADHD. So if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, you might be, you probably are. Okay. I'm just going to diagnose you here. I always kind of knew. My mom always had an idea that I was a little different. She was like, Angie doesn't want to sit all day in school, which I don't think any child should or want to. You're sitting there for 8 hours. It's so not good for your brain. I always had a sense of questioning a lot of things, thinking outside the box, very creative, wasn't able to finish a book or a movie if I wasn't interested in it, would come home and paint my room a different color every few days. I would be like, Mom, go to the paint store. It needs to be pink now. And then 5 days later, nope, it's got to be blue now. I loved novelty. And that's one of the biggest signs of ADHD is novelty because it releases dopamine in the brain. ADHD people are usually deficient in dopamine, which means we usually crave newness. We love new ideas, new adventures. We do well in entrepreneurship because it's a game of newness every day. What the heck is going to happen, right? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? We're kind of addicted to that in a way. And if leveraged properly, it is such a strength. And it's been such a beautiful tool for me to utilize in entrepreneurship. But then outside of that, sometimes it can obviously be very frustrating if Clay turns on the stove and then I'm over here doing something creative and then the stove is still on. This is not a good thing, obviously. So, I have to have little ways to work around it. I always had an idea. I didn't know. My mom didn't want to label me, which I'm very grateful for. So she always just said, no, you're just creative. The school system isn't really made for you. And, I was 10 years old. I didn't know what being neurodiverse was. And so she never told me. And it wasn't until I went to the Amen Clinic, the Dr. Daniel Amen Clinic in Orange County 2.5 years ago. And we all got our brains scanned. And that's where I got the official confirmation or diagnosis, where he said to me, your prefrontal cortex, it's very evident that you're extremely highly creative, but your executive center for follow through, organization, blah, 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 all these things. If you're not interested in something, you do not do it. And I said, yeah, that is me in a nutshell. If I love something, I have hyperfocus. And this is one of the strengths of ADHD is it's called hyperfocus. It means if you love something, you love it. And if any parents are listening and you have a kiddo who has it, I get this DM a lot, not a mom yet, but I get this DM and they'll say, my daughter is like super into dinosaurs right now. And she's just like so obsessed to the point where it's like not healthy, but she goes all in and gives 110% to this thing. And then if it's something else that she needs to work on, but she doesn't have an interest in it, it's over. And so that's sometimes a common sign of just a child who, if there's dopamine, we're in and we'll commit and we'll do it. But if there's not, we're kind of like, our brain literally shuts down. Our prefrontal cortex shuts down. So I've really learned ways to manage it. It's one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with health and wellness, from my supplementation to my movement to my sleep. Pretty much everything I do is conducive to naturally increasing my cognitive function, I'll say. So doing everything I can to not take Adderall and to be able to function in this society. So that's where I'm at. I've become a little biohacker in that sense, where I'm always trying to optimize my food, my nutrition, my supplements. And I can share obviously some of those here of what I do. But once I really confirmed it, it made sense and it made me feel as if, okay, I'm not broken. How do I use this as an advantage versus seeing it as a weakness? Because unfortunately, a lot of, especially the traditional schooling system, it's just not made for the neurodiverse. It's made for the child who can sit for 8 hours and do the same thing every day, which I'm like, who can do that? Most kids are not interested in most of those topics. And then they don't have enough physical activity, which is so important. If you have ADHD, you have to let out that energy. And so I think a lot of my life, I thought I was broken because the system was broken. But now I'm realizing, oh, it's just the school system. It's just messed up. It wasn't me. It's the school system. And so it's definitely a superpower, though, I think, overall.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the school system. My youngest goes to an outdoor school where I feel like...
outdoor school?
Yeah.
What's that?
They have a lot of activities outside. And there's actually one day of the week where they go to this park and they're outside all day. They even have like waterproof journals that they journal in. The only thing that stops them from going there is if there's lightning. And we're talking Canadian winters when it's like -20. And they're like, nope, make sure your kids pack accordingly. Because here's what they say. I love this, is it's our job to keep your kids safe, not comfortable. And I think that is so beautiful. Because if you can raise a child where they're not always comfortable, and if they want comfort, they have to seek it, then they're going to be more adaptable human beings.
Yeah.
But they keep them safe. And this school definitely helps with Noah. Now, whether or not he has ADD, ADHD, I don't know, but he's a 9-year-old boy. And he's got a lot of energy, and he's able to express that because on Fridays they bike to school, then they go stand up paddleboarding, and then they bike back to school, and maybe they'll work. But I mean, think about that.
So cool.
For entrepreneurs. So the school's understanding that they need this exercise and bring them outside and doing all these activities. And where do we lose that as adults? Now the days become too busy. There's too much on my plate. I don't have time to work out. But we know nutrition, sleep, hydration, and working out, regardless, will help you. And then especially if your brain is super squirrely.
Yep, absolutely.
So tell us about your protocol. What's the protocol?
I was going to say, movement is my medicine. I'm one of those people where it's not really a luxury. It's not like, ooh, because I want to be fit. I would like to say that's why. I mean, sure, that's a great benefit, but it's so I don't lose my mind and, and punch a wall. So I'm able to focus. I notice such a direct correlation between if I go and work out, those few hours after, that release of BDNF, which is brain-derived nootropic factor, which is essentially that little, I'll call it the buzz or the high that you get after a workout where your brain feels tingly and you're like, I got all the ideas. I could do this. That feeling is so necessary for the neurodiverse brain. So I'll plan a lot of my meetings or my things where I need a lot of focus right after I work out. So I'm timing things a lot. I'm optimizing my brain for when it works best. So I'm not going to record a podcast when I'm not in the zone, like post-workout zone, or if I haven't at least went on a walk in the morning and moved my blood and got my brain working. So I'm optimizing a lot with timing. And then food. My body does really well on a high protein diet. I don't do a ton of carbohydrates, especially during the day. I'll do some at night, some healthy carbs, but that's made me feel a little sleepy. So playing around with what brings you energy, what foods make you feel alert, and which foods make you feel sleepy. Nootropics. I do a lot of ginseng, ginkgo biloba. I know a lot of people like caffeine for it. I actually don't do a lot of caffeine, but that works really well for a lot of people.
I thought that'd be the opposite.
I don't do well in it. I naturally obviously have a lot of energy. And so it's weird. What happens to me is the adverse effect. It makes me kind of crash and feel a little brain foggy, which stinks because I love the taste and smell of coffee, but I actually don't do coffee. But instead we have these things called alert caps. So I'll do our alert caps, which are green tea based. I will do from Beekeepers Naturals. It's called Brain Fuel. It's like this little vial that I'll take a little shot of. It tastes kind of gross, but that's been awesome. I just play around with a lot of supplementation that are considered natural cognitive enhancers or nootropics. So if you guys are listening, you want to look up nootropics, type in natural nootropics, and you'll find a bunch of different.
You talk about this on your podcast. And I feel like anytime I see or hear the word nootropics, your voice is in my head.
Because I live on nootropics. I love nootropics. Yeah.
So tell us about your product that you use every day.
Yeah. So I'll use our alert caps, which have green tea in them. They do have a little bit of caffeine. I won't do that every day. I'll only do it on the days where I'm creating content and need to be really in the zone. Or if I'm speaking, I had a speaking engagement last weekend. So I'll take one of those before I go on stage, or the Beekeepers vial before I go on stage. But again, even that, if you take it every day, then you kind of build a dependency in a sense. You don't need it physically. It's not like you actually need it. But I notice that it works better if I cycle it, like any supplement. So I cycle with that a little bit. Yeah, I love our alert caps. And what's great too is teenagers can take it. And I have a lot of moms in my community that will be giving it to their sons or their daughters because they're realizing, like, why would I be so quick to put them on Adderall? And I do think there are certain people who can handle it well. I just believe, like, choose natural first, see if it works, and then use that as the last resort. But most people who are on it have not done all the other things, such as moving their body every single day, making sure they're getting adequate sleep, trying out nootropics, cutting out sugar and processed foods that are obviously not going to be supportive to anybody's brain. And so first do those things before you try Adderall. I just have so many situations with people who it's really hard to get off it when you're on it. It's kind of like legalized crack, let's just be honest. And so I'm very passionate and vocal about, I don't think long-term it's safe. And I think there's a reason why it makes you feel like you could do 800 things in one day. I don't think it's safe long-term, but I have friends who take a little bit, and then I have friends who it was brutal to get off of it. So I usually don't talk about it as an option. I know many people are on it, but it breaks my heart when kids are on it who they're just so young. Their brain is still forming. Like you said, your son, he's 9. He's a boy. He's supposed to be hyper right now. Let him go kick a tree, lick a tree, jump off a tree. Like, why not? You know? But so many people are trying to like contain their 9-year-old son. I'm like, why? He's supposed to have all this energy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's like,
that's mostly what I do. Is I'm really big on sleep. That's like my obsession. It's the thing I'm the most particular about. So I would say sleep, movement, my nootropics, and then kind of playing around with timing, like I said, with my schedule. So batching content, figuring out when I can get into that zone, that creative zone right after I work out or I've done some sort of movement where I feel that I can be the most productive. But it's hard. It's a constant battle every day.
Okay, I want your attention right here. Breathe in, breathe out. All right, now that we're relaxed and we're focusing, because that's the whole point of this podcast is learning about how to focus and be more productive, I want to teach you about how to pitch the media. And I know one of the biggest hesitations for clients that either work with me or who have coached through this process is, Renee, I don't know what to say. How long should these pitches be? When should I pitch them? Do I include attachments? Do I include links? How do I reach out to the media? Well, if you haven't worked with me or aren't working with me, maybe you should hire me, buy back your time, or you can download this really cool little nugget that I call Media Pitch Examples Proven to Get You Press Coverage. I don't know how many pages it is, but there are a ton of examples that I've used to get winning media coverage. And I think I include some follow-ups in there too. But go check it out, wewildwomen.com/media-examples. Go check it out. You can just go to wewildwomen.com and look at the freebies section. I have a ton of downloads, but specifically this guide if you really want to learn how to pitch the media. After this recording, I jump into CrossFit. And I just know coming back, like getting into the gym, I don't want to be there, but I know that feeling afterwards and all this stuff gets done. But not only does it get done, I'm more efficient because I have that extra kick and I feel like, woohoo, I can take on the world. Okay, so really quickly then, do you have a pretty detailed sleep routine? Like what's the do's and don'ts?
Yeah, Clay would be laughing right now. He's like, oh God, I am the biggest sleep diva on the planet. It's the only reason why I'm afraid to have children. I'm like, oh, I'm hiring 16 night nurses. Like what is going to happen?
Start recruiting now.
I need 9 hours uninterrupted. Okay. Yep, I need a good 9 hours. I need pitch black, my eye mask. I take our sleepy gummy, which is really great. We're basically a sleep company now at this point because that's our biggest SKU. Or I'll take a melatonin, magnesium, obviously CBD. I'll drop some in like a little cacao and do like a little nighttime drink. I do my blue light blocking glasses. I'm not doing any stimulation with screens and stuff about 2 hours before. I got a whole protocol. It takes about 3 hours. So it's like my thing that I'm just so obsessed with because when I get that sleep, I am unstoppable. I wake up and I'm like, I can take over the world. I got this. But if I don't, I am the worst. I'm not nice. I'm hungry. My focus is horrible. I'm a really bad person and I don't like myself. So I take it really seriously because if not, I don't like my life. And so I'm so passionate to get people to sleep well because I truly believe if you sleep well, it can change your entire life because great sleep changes the next day. And if you can have a great day, then you can have great days and weeks and months, which makes up your life. And so it's kind of like, it really starts with sleep because even all the tips I gave you with food and nutrition and timing your stuff, if you're not sleeping well and allowing your brain to repair, especially if you have a lot of energy, you're not going to really be able to function or optimize your time anyway. And so I would say that's actually step one. It's not sexy, but it's real and it's honest. It's getting to bed earlier, 100%. Turning off electronics, obviously no caffeine towards the end of the night. I don't eat a lot before bed even. I've noticed that helps just so I've already digested my food. Eye masks are great. Also, we have baby salt lamps everywhere. So we have no artificial light at night. So we just have the light from just like salt lamps everywhere. It's like a spa. Yeah, we don't mess around with artificial light here. So only natural light. I mean, I've just optimized our home for sleep. So guys, just come over and you'll see the sleep den.
So Angie is inviting you over for a sleepover.
Everyone come over.
We'll just make sure
sleep retreat.
Clay's okay with this. Sleep retreat.
Listen, he had good sleep patterns before, but now I've turned him into a total baby grandpa because I'm like, no, we got to go to bed earlier and it's got to be pitch black and 68 degrees in the room. Like I'm optimizing all of it. And I do think it's something that we just don't talk about enough. I think everybody's just kind of like skimping on it when it's so important.
It's the foundation for a great life. People are like, how do you stay active? How do you do all this with your kids and your husband that's always traveling? And I'm like, I actually focus everything about protecting my sleep. If I'm getting a good night's sleep, it means that I have to do these things to get a good night's sleep, which means I have to work out and drink water and eat well. because if those things contribute to a good night's sleep.
And how old is your youngest?
Chinese
9?
Food, he's 9.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. Yeah. You're like, you're
9
done
and
with, you don't have babies anymore. You're done.
No babies. No, but we have a puppy, but he still sleeps through the night. But yeah. One thing I will say is that because you are a baby sleep grandma, you definitely need to get a night nanny. That was the best investment we ever made. She came over twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and she took the baby. And we had guaranteed those 2 nights sleep. And then we had other systems set up too. But I love this because we think about like managing ADHD as in like maybe taking prescription drugs, and there are instances when it's required. But we don't focus on these things. And here's the thing too that I know is getting into these good habits takes a while. You just learned this of yourself, and now you're like, it's dialed in. And this is now who you are.
Yeah, I didn't just do it all overnight. It started probably 6-7 years ago when I became obsessed with wellness and realized that if I could optimize some of these areas of my life, then I could function better. And so it took time. It wasn't like all of a sudden, all overnight, I did all of this. It was, okay, nutrition. Okay, now optimize sleep. Okay, movement. And I just checked it off. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think a lot of this can feel very overwhelming to many people. Like, where do I begin? Take it one step at a time. Sleep first. Okay, how can you add more movement? Okay, now what are you eating? Like, take it in chunks.
Right. It's true. One thing at a time. That's more sustainable. Okay, I love this. And I wasn't too sure what we were going to talk about going into this because I knew you had some like sneaky natural tips, and I love that. I appreciate this. I do have one last question for you.
Yeah.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman.
All right, I'm going to keep this show PG-13 because you told me to keep it PG-13, which is very difficult for me, so I'm holding it in. Let me think of my PG answer to that because my first thought was like, woo, she's crazy. Like an embodied goddess. Oh gosh, a wild woman. Honestly, I think it's a woman who's unapologetic in all areas of her life. Like I said, whether that's her business, her relationships. I love my 30s now because it's like the coolest era of, I feel like a wild woman. Like I'm free. And I've always been that way. I've always been very unapologetic, but there's even a new layer of it that I just don't care anymore. And with that, I do care, but I don't, which has allowed my work to get better. And my relationships, it's almost like I'm not attached to things as much. And I'm not attached to making other people happy anymore. It's just awesome when you get to that place as a woman. And I think that if you can create from that energy of being unapologetic, being unboxable, that is just so powerful. It's very magnetic too. People want to be around someone who is just fully themselves. That's what I see as a wild woman. They're just unhinged.
I love that. Right? Unboxed. Wait till you get to unhinged. Your 40s. I call it the give no F's 40s. It gets better.
I can't imagine what my 40s will be like if I already am like, oh God, I don't care anymore. How am I going to care even less?
Well, I don't know. Maybe you care less about the things that you care less about.
Ooh.
Even more. Next level care lessing. Well, enjoy the 30s. 30s are great. Here's what I know about 30s. I feel like it's that you've graduated from the 20s when you've done all the stupid stuff. Yeah. And now physically it's catching up to you. But now most people, if they've done life right, maybe they have a significant other, they've made money, they can afford things. Then when you get to the 40s, it's like all this stuff's compounding. Wow. And things start to sag. So areas of your life get really good, and then other areas of life require you to get colonics on the monthly. And that's okay because we've determined those things actually work.
The procedure. The
best procedure you can get is a colonic.
Yeah, listen, just get all of that out. Just get it out. Detox it out.
Yeah, no, it feels good. Okay, so if people want to hear more about you, where can they go to find you online?
Yeah, you guys can go to Angie Lee Show on Instagram, angielee.com, at get.soul. That's our new IG handle for soul if you want to check out soul. And yeah, send me a DM any questions and I'm here to help.
Woo! Well, thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time. The best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.